Hey, welcome back. So, an announcement just got out that the alleged shooter and murderer of Charlie Kirk had been apprehended. Well, he was turned in by his father, or let me say, his father urged him to turn himself in, being assisted by his pastor. So, we're going to be listening to the governor of Utah giving a statement surrounding the entire issue of the assassination, and then it's an inspiring way to look at what happened with Charlie and how it affects all of us. And we're going to also take a look at the profile of the shooter. All right, now we're going to jump into this and then give our reactions.
I've heard people say, well, why are we so invested in this? There's violence happening all across our country, and violence is tragic everywhere. And every life taken is a child of God who deserves our love and respect and dignity. This is certainly about the tragic death, political assassination of Charlie Kirk. But it is also much bigger than an attack on an individual. It is an attack on all of us.
I agree. When I heard that he had been shot, I felt vulnerable. I honestly felt vulnerable, and I've never met Charlie, never broke bread with him, never, even been in the same room with him. And I've only seen, I haven't seen as many videos of his debates and of his content as I have of others, but it hit so close to home. This was tragic. And for those of us who are mourning even till now, you know that feeling. This is someone that spoke in a way that you wished you could speak about issues. He communicated clearly, he showed empathy and compassion. And we're going to watch one of his videos, sometime during this clip, because people have already gone on the internet to claim that he was a racist. I'm going to show you a video that proves he wasn't a racist. They've tried every trick in the book to smear his name, and he wasn't, his body wasn't even in the ground yet, and they've done everything to smear his name. It's so repulsive that human beings can actually think and behave that way.
It is an attack on the American experiment. It is an attack on our ideals. This cuts to the very foundation of who we are, of who we have been, and who we could be in better times. Political violence is different than any other type of violence for lots of different reasons. One, because in the very act that Charlie championed of expression, that freedom of expression that is enshrined in our founding documents, in having his life taken in that very act, makes it more difficult for people to feel like they can share their ideas, that they can speak freely. We will never be able to solve all the other problems, including the violence problems that people are worried about, if we can't have a clash of ideas safely and securely, even especially those ideas with which you disagree. That's why this matters so much.
Now, we're going to see MSNBC, or like I like to call them, TDSBC, giving their own take on this. And you would see the stark difference in tone and in spirit while they're talking about this whole issue. So TDSBC is already screaming and saying that, or trying to point the fact that it was the perceived, not even perceived, they're saying it is the fascism that the assassin was attacking, because the bullets or the shell casings had the words fascist catch on it, or catch this fascist. So let's listen.
Right now, the question is, are Republican members of Congress going not only to roll over to Donald Trump's will, but to roll over our democracy and allow him to take over this country as a fascist dictator?
So here they are. Now, he didn't say what I said earlier in the clip, but here they are already signaling that any attempt by Donald Trump to begin to address the language and the posturing in the political space and the public space that has driven this tragedy. Everyone should see it as a fascistic move. Look, you can't make this up. You can't make this up. The man's body isn't in the ground yet, and they've politicized it. They've politicized the action of addressing the thing that led up to his murder as a fascistic move. We're going to look at some information about the alleged shooter, because so far what we have is that he was turned in. Clearly, the photos that circulated signaled his parents to advise him to turn himself in. And we're going to just take a look at the profile. And there's something that I want us to see, because many times when people have this dream of sending their kids to college, and you feel like you're sending your kids to be sent, to go there and become a better person, he returns to you or she returns to you as a well-rounded human being. That's the hope. But a lot of times kids go off to college and they change because the rhetoric from college professors, and now we're finding that in elementary schools, it's actually bled into elementary schools. And I'm going to show you something from a classroom, an elementary school classroom, that teachers are showing their students. It should enrage you, and it should begin to make you question what's going on in the educational system. So we're going to take a look at the shooter's profile, and I'm going to have some comments to make while we're watching that.
Right now,
So this is the profile of the shooter's mom, and clearly you can see that the young man appears to have come from a well-balanced family. The pictures show that they are happy, and anyone will say that this is this is someone who came from a well-rounded home, okay, and they appear to be religious, okay, or at least Christians, because it was mentioned that the father's pastor joined him in persuading the young man to turn himself in. All right, so this is him and his father, and this is when he was younger, I assume, okay, and his father turned him in, and then this is him, so this is someone who seems unassuming. But how did he go from this to committing such a heinous crime? I would say that it comes from the educational system. At least a chunk of it comes from the educational system. I don't think it comes from his family, because his father urged him to turn himself in. He didn't try to collude with his son to hide. I'm sure his family was absolutely shocked that he was involved in such a monstrous crime. So I would assume, and I stand corrected if that's not the case, but I assume that his family had nothing to do with it, because he was brought up properly. And so it has to do with the educational system. How is it that he went from being a good-natured young man from a good family to becoming a cold-blooded killer? Now, let's look at my theory about the educational system, because I keep talking about these colleges and how they are the breeding ground for most of these societal or cultural Marxists who extol violence. They promote violence, and then they accuse the other side of being the ones who promote violence. And because they have the microphone, the media is backing them. We just saw MSNBC putting their own spin on Trump's call for more civil speech. Because if we're truthful to ourselves, the speech that has been coming from the left for years has been nothing short of incendiary. But they say that that the incendiary speech is coming from the conservative side. They get to do that. They get to gaslight. They get to say all that because they have the media backing them. They have the media running interference for them. And so we're going to have a look at what's going on in a university on the campus and pay close attention to what's going on with the student body being told about a pushback against fascism. And of course, they're talking about Donald Trump and anyone who supports him. So Georgia Tech University in Atlanta is flooded with signs saying Trump must go the day after Charlie Kirk's assassination. The left likes to talk about dog whistles. They love that phrase. But the biggest dog whistle that we have is coming from their side. Something happens. There's no solidarity. There's no mourning. There's no compassion. They speak so much about compassion and empathy. We've seen the reactions that, they've put out. They can't help themselves. This is exactly who they've been trained to be. They celebrate the man's death. They curse at his wife and children. They don't care. They go on mainstream media and run interference to say that Trump trying to prevent this from happening next time is fascism, and that they hope that the Republican Party doesn't roll over to Donald Trump. And then college students the next day print out these signs.
The day after Charlie Kirk's murder, we're here at Georgia Tech University in Atlanta, Georgia, and the first thing I see when I come to the campus is the fall of the Trump fascist regime beginning November 5th, 2025.
All right, I'm going to mute the music or the sound, and we're just going to follow this creator. He's going to walk through the campus, and the commentary in the post says that even when they interviewed other students, the students were glad that Charlie was murdered. This is happening on campuses everywhere. So if you don't know this has been happening, all right, you need to just pay attention. So that post says 2028 is way too late. Trump must go now. The big sign says the fall of the Trump fascist regime. So they say these are incendiary. These are the incendiary words. They say no, these aren't incendiary words. When you label someone a fascist, a Nazi, and you tell people like this person is dangerous, is a danger to democracy, a literal danger to society, you're signaling to them that whatever you do to them to prevent them from destroying your society, it's okay. And when it comes from lawmakers, it justifies whatever you do to those people. All right. Now that's two signs. Then another sign somewhere else on a college campus. The fall of the Trump fascist regime beginning November 5th, 2025, Washington, D.C. No, in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. Refusefascism.org. This is an organized movement. And, I'll tell you a short story. In Nigeria, back in, I believe it was in 2013 or 2014, there was a candidate, a presidential candidate, who made an announcement and said if he did not win the presidency, that they would make Nigeria ungovernable. And leading up to the elections in 2015, there was an uptick in kidnappings and religious violence and destruction. Like it was just crazy. And it was weird that they said that and suddenly stuff started happening that made the country unstable. And you know what? Well, he won the election because he won on the back of saying that he was going to calm things down. Well, that's the way it happens. Once the genie is out of the bottle, the violence continues. And the violence did not stop and is still ongoing till today. When people stand up who are political leaders and they say things out there into the atmosphere and things begin to happen, they can't walk it back to say that it wasn't about what they said. Democrats have done their level best to claim that January 6th was Trump's fault, and it isn't. They've done their level best to say that all of the other violence across the country is Trump's fault, but it isn't. They try to pin all the attacks on them being Trump's supporters. I saw a clip of Abby Phillips trying to claim that the man who murdered the legislators, I believe it was in Wisconsin, a few months back, he was a Trump supporter. And it's like, excuse me, what do you mean by him being a Trump supporter? He was appointed by Governor Walz. He was definitely a Democrat. Democrats don't appoint Republicans as to become their aides. And she said, well, there's this flyer in his car. Are you joking? He had a No Kings flyer in his car. It's like, is that your reasoning? You're trying to say that because he had a No Kings flyer, which of course was a rally against Trump, and that's your reasoning for saying that, he was a Trump supporter. They do their very best to twist backwards and to make every argument to say that, the violence is coming from the right when it is obviously coming from the left. Charlie Kirk was speaking on a college campus. He's seen as a right-wing, commentator or influencer. He was simply a conservative Christian doing what he believed he should do for his country. He gets killed. And then you have all these left-leaning politicians saying, we don't know what, happened. We don't know, the motives. We don't know what's going on. It's amazing, the hypocrisy. It's infuriating, to be honest. So, while I'm talking, I'm doing my very best to keep my Christian grace at the surface. But the more you look at this and the more you talk about it, it gets infuriating because they really believe that you're stupid, that you're a moron, and that when they tell you something, you just automatically believe it. And when you don't automatically believe it, they try to gaslight you, discredit you, and shame you. This is going on a college campus. I think I've shown enough. It's all over the place. It's all over the place. This should be in a bus stop. Another sticker. No, in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. They're using the same buzzwords. And when they say all these things, they signal that it is okay to do to anyone who supports Donald Trump and conservative values what was done to Charlie Kirk. That is my take on it. You might jump in the comment section and say, well, you're being too extreme. I'm sorry. I've been around too long. I've seen too much. It's hard to unsee it once you start observing it. It's hard to unsee it. We're going to see some footage of Chuck Schumer claiming that we have to tone down the rhetoric, when only a couple of days before he stood with a megaphone, and you're going to hear what he said.
The bottom line is this is a time that all Americans should come together. Coming together is what we ought to be doing, not pointing fingers of blame.
So on September 11th, after a patriot was killed, he comes out with his suit and starts speaking softly, making it look like they are the party of reason and common sense and compassion and empathy. And then you see him 5 days before screaming F Trump and ginning up the crowd. Why am I doing this? Why am I showing all this? Honestly, I think by now we should all know that all this has been happening for a long time. And all of the calls to tone down the rhetoric being pointing at conservatives has all been a lie. It's all been a lie. I have a suggestion for the American people. You need to insist that all the hateful name calling has to leave politics. And anyone who says it can and should be sued. I don't know why there aren't any lawsuits, of defamation. Of course, they'll get up and say that it's attacking their freedom of speech. But when your freedom of speech costs a family, their father and husband, and you refuse to have the decency to acknowledge that that is what happened, and you proceed to continue to say and do the things that caused that death, I don't think there's an argument to be made. Let me know in the comment section if you agree with this sentiment, because I don't think so. I said earlier that the death of Charlie cut so close to home. And I think it's because of what I've been doing with my channels. I simply speak my mind and what I've observed and the values that Charlie has put forward. I watch his videos and I agree with the things he says so far 100%. And so when you stand in alignment with someone that closely and they get shot for simply speaking kindly, I'm not sure I've ever heard Charlie be as fiery as I have been on some of these videos. And I think I was a bit fiery on this one earlier. I haven't heard him or seen him be that fiery in a public debate. I don't think so. He was soft-spoken. He was kind. And that didn't save him. That didn't help him. That didn't protect him from the insanity of what happened to him on the 11th. On the 10th. It's painful. It's sad. It hurts. Today is Friday. I started the recording of this. It's the 12th. It's not as painful as it was when it happened on the 10th, but it's still very painful. Now, I mentioned the problems that we're having in the educational system. I showed you what was going on in Atlanta, and this is going on at an elementary school. This picture was sent to a parent, and they were incensed. And I'm hiding the comments because I don't want to expose the location or anything. Okay, but imagine an elementary school teacher teaching elementary school students that Donald Trump and Hitler are the same. It has Hitler on the left, Donald Trump on the right, and an equal sign between them saying that Adolf Hitler is equals Donald Trump. And there's a big title caption, titled Trumpetized. This is being taught at an elementary school. Parents, you need to keep a close eye on what your children are being taught in schools. You need to keep a really close eye on what they're taught in schools. If you can, homeschool, if you can. But if you can't, make it a priority to be responsible for what they believe spiritually first. Pray with them, read the Bible with them, discuss scriptures with them. Let their worldview be shaped by godly values. Those are the values that has built Western civilization for millennia. And today, Marxists and communists in the educational system are trying to persuade your kids that that is not the case, that Christian values are the reason for slavery, are the reason for oppression and marginalization. And that is not true. It was Christians who pushed for the abolition of slavery. It was Christians that built up the United States of America. They would say that it was slavery. They would say that it was America taking undue advantage of the rest of the world after World War II was won. They would lie and say all of those things. But it's not true. And they know it. They can't prove that their claims are correct. And so they resort to trying to shame you. When they can't shame you, they try to frighten you. And then when they can't succeed, they try to terrorize you. They try to shame you to shut up. You don't. They try to terrorize you. They shame you by calling you names. And when you don't budge, they try to frighten you by trying to get you to lose your income, your job, your house, your friends, your family. And when that doesn't happen, they try to terrorize you by threatening death. The number of right-leaning commentators who have received death threats just after Charlie Kirk's passing should enrage everyone. We have lists out there of people saying, here's a list of commentators, and we've crossed out Charlie Kirk. Who's next? Well, the shooter has been apprehended. There have been a lot of things said. Leftists are still saying the things that they shouldn't be saying, but they're saying them anyhow because there's no consequence to them saying it. We have a history of people, using language that they shouldn't use, but they step out to say we need to tone down the rhetoric. They did it for Trump, and then they're doing it today for Charlie Kirk. And you know what? While they're telling those on the conservative side to tone down the rhetoric, they are out there actively accusing the violence that happened to Charlie Kirk. They're blaming it on Charlie and the conservative movement. This is vile and this is wrong. This is painful. But you know what? As Christians, we hold the moral high ground not because we self-assigned the moral high ground to ourselves, but because we follow the moral instructions that God instructs us to live by. That is the moral high ground. It isn't you simply stating that this is the moral high ground, let's take the moral high ground. No, we pray for our enemies. We love our enemies. We pray for those who despitefully use us. And in this situation, we mourn with Charlie and his family. We pray for them and with them. We support, the cause that Charlie supported. And you know what? Those of you who feel like it is your call to take up at least a part of what he did in your own small way, it's time for you to do it. Okay? No more excuses. Let me know in the comment section what it is that you feel like God is asking you to do, that is a calling that you felt for a long time, that you've that you've pushed off for a while. Let me know in the comment section. If you've watched for this long, you're a super fan. Thanks for watching this long. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the share. Thank you for the subscription. And I would like to invite you to please consider joining the membership group on the main channel that's monetized. If you're watching it on the channel that is over 10,000 subscribers, that is the monetized channel. You can request a link for the membership registration and I'll send it to you. If you're on the other channel that is less than 1,000 subscribers, and I would love to connect deeper with you in the membership section. I want to have live streams with you, conversations with you, real connections with you, because look, we need each other in times like this. We don't need to spread out and be by ourselves. We need to be able to connect and share and talk and be a part of each other's world. Thank you so much for being a part of this video. Thank you for being so supportive, and I'll see you on the next one. God bless you.
Unfortunately, in the black community, dads are the most absent of any community. About 2/3 of all black youth will be raised without a stable father around. And I know, it's crazy, right? And that little precious angel of yours deserves to have a father around. For daughters and for sons, it's different things. For a daughter, that's a father figure to look up to say that is how a man should act, and someone that I ought to one day marry, someone that will protect me from a vicious world, and someone that makes me understand what strength and not brutality looks like, what justice but not revenge looks like. To have a father figure is a silent way of forming a child to be a mature citizen. And unfortunately, as we've removed dads from families, government has come in and has taken the place. So some people need help and they need social assistance. All of that should be about incentivizing the dad staying around, not the dad leaving. Unfortunately, with welfare, you can get more money for single mother assistance.
This is very true.
And so you agree. We're actually subsidizing single motherhood more than we are subsidizing family formation. The #1 objective of any social welfare program should be, how do we keep the family together and put dads back in the family?
Yes.
That is the #1 priority.